All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. SQL Dev DBA here, and it's my second stream of the day. Earlier, I was streaming regarding Call of Duty analytics. So we actually took a Call of Duty World Championship dataset from Kaggle. We were exploring that dataset. We brought it into SQL Server. We made a Power BI report out of it. It was a pretty interesting data set for sure, and I'm still not done with the report. Basically, I just got the essential report down, the essential data sets. I focused much of the time, probably about 75% of the time, on just curating the data set itself to prepare it for a report. And then we brought it into Power BI and spent about an hour or so, I would say, on a initial report, which I published out. And you can actually, if you're in chat right now, you can actually take a look at that link right there, which is the current version of the report. I have a couple things that I wrote down that I wanted to add to it, but for now, it's just a pretty basic report that shows things like players, the teams they were on, the matches, the different modes of game modes that they play, and just match dates. And I want to add things like the match detail, like series detail, and matches inside certain series, including the outcome of the matches, because people want to know if they won or lost, and maybe like a team summary that shows the members on the team, how many matches they've won, their kill death ratio, their kills, their deaths, that sort of stuff. But that's not what this stream is about. This stream is based on a phone call that I had today regarding an enterprise system. And what do I mean by an enterprise system? I mean, I want to get into the mindset of, if I had to build an enterprise level system from scratch today and have it ready relatively quickly, what would I do? What sort of things would I take into consideration? Where would I go? What technologies would I use? And I want to make sure that I have it sort of documented here. And what better way to document it than being live? It helps me think a little bit. You get to watch my thought process and how I would tackle certain problems, all the considerations that I take into account, that sort of thing. But before we go there, two things. Number one, I want to do a tech check of the keyboard and mouse I'm using, but I also just want to take a second to basically just say I value all of the different questions that I get here on stream. I absolutely love answering questions. I absolutely love sharing my knowledge. But you all know that I tend to go off on a tangent a little bit. So I'll tackle a question and then I answer it for about 20 minutes. And so, in the spirit of keeping things on track and allowing myself to focus on the topic at hand, I've implemented a new strategy for questions, and that is going to be the pinned chat that you probably see in the chat if you're in there. Is a link to PoleGab, a link to my room in PoleGab. It's polegab.com/rooms/SQLDevDBA. And so any questions that you have, you can feel free to push them over to PoleGab, and during either breaks or close to the end of the stream, I'll pull the PoleGab up. I'll actually ask the question right here live on stream, and I'll have the question sort of displayed right here across the top as well, so that you can get your question answered in detail, and we can also focus on the task at hand during the stream itself. So that's a new strategy I have. Hoping everything works out with it, because I really like the intent that we have here, and so we'll see how it goes. All right. So second thing I want to do is a quick tech check. So Kizzy 65%. I don't know if it has an official name. Probably something like the K65. Because this right here, the little numerical pad, that's called the K20. It actually comes completely separate. You can purchase it separately. And so that this is the K20. This is very likely the K65, but I'm not sure. But it's basically just a smaller version of the K75 without any function buttons basically across the top. I really do like it. I like the switches and the travel. I like the sort of lack of noise that they make. It sounds very I don't know if this is a technical term, but the common term is creamy. And so I really do like the way it sounds, the way it feels, and it's absolutely fantastic. Then we have the Logitech MX Master 3S. Really enjoy using this mouse. It is great on multiple devices, and it's super comfortable to use for long periods of time, which is today, apparently. Today. So let's go ahead and just jump right in. I really want to tackle this topic because I feel it's really important to really get a sense of how an architect thinks, how a data architect thinks anyway. I've been a data architect for a number of years now. I've been in the data space for about 15 years. Probably a data architect for, let's say, about five to 6 years now. I've gone from data analyst to DBA to senior DBA. I'm a manager of teams. I've been a manager of teams for a number of years now, more than 10 years. And so a lot of my work just entails architecting solutions for the organizations that I'm a part of, and also sort of trying to invent things in my mind of how I would tackle certain problems if I had them. And I have a home lab here, right? I do have 3 SQL servers on 3 different bare metal machines, what are called bare metal, but they're really just small workstation machines that are dedicated for SQL Server. 2 of those also have Oracle installed on them. So I do have my own sort of little data center, if you will, here right at home, that I use to just brainstorm ideas, to test different theories out, that sort of thing. And also for all the work that you see here on this channel, it all goes through those SQL servers as well. And so I thought, okay, let's get into a mindset of an organization who needs to set up a data platform. They have this CRM and they have an ERP, and they use it quite a bit. However, they need to get insights out of it. And naturally, you'd say, well, or at least the companies that make these CRMs and ERPs, they would naturally say, well, just use the solution that comes with it, or use this add-on solution that we have at only the low price of, I don't know, $15,000 or whatever it is, plus a huge learning curve. Just use our solution. It's already in the system anyway. It has direct access to all the data. You may as well just use it. And that's all well and good. Don't get me wrong. If you're a small shop and you can't really afford to, not just monetary wise, but also resources wise, if you don't have dedicated resources that can be dedicated to your data, it's quite all right to use the embedded solutions that are part of CRMs like Salesforce, NetSuite, HubSpot, to name a few. But if you have this idea of a centralized data platform that has access to not only Salesforce, NetSuite, HubSpot, etc., but also all the other systems and vendors that you interact with. And some of them do interact for a low price, again, of $50,000 per connector or whatever it is. But you want your own data strategy. You want your own data store, data mart, data warehouse. Then building it yourself, and I mean theoretically building it yourself, is not a bad idea, as long as you have the resources to dedicate to that, right? Because it's not just a plug and play or press a button and it's all done for you. you do have to work at this, and you have to maintain it, you have to optimize it, you have to back it up and prep for disasters, that sort of thing. So again, this stream is just going to be sort of a plan. I'm starting to draw up plans for what an enterprise data solution would look like for a not maybe a small enterprise data solution, or a simple. I wouldn't even say small, because this will work on grand platforms. I've seen this platform implemented in extremely large companies. We're talking about companies that are owned by a specific cartoon mouse that I've seen this on. Companies, huge hotel and worldwide companies that I've worked for have also had this strategy. So it's not like it's like some botched together thing. It is maybe not as advanced or sexy as a lot of companies would like to have you think, but it does get the job done, and it gets the job done well, and it's very simple to maintain, it's very simple to put together. So I'm doing a lot of talking. Let's just jump right in and start architecting these things. So I'm going to use Lucidchart for all my diagrams. It's lucidchart.com. I'm not sponsored by Lucidchart. In fact, I'm a customer of theirs. They have no idea I exist. I just like to use their platform because it's a cloud platform that I can pretty much open on any device I want, on my phone, on my laptops, anything that has a browser. Basically, I just jump right in and start documenting. So here is a diagram from one of my prior streams. This stream is basically how to connect Power BI to an ERP or a CRM. And if you're watching this on YouTube, the stream is actually, or the live stream / video for it's going to be right up there as a link. You can feel free to jump over there if you want to check that one out. But basically, that was very limited to Salesforce, NetSuite, and a couple others. And I went through the benefits of connecting Power BI directly to them, and also the drawbacks of having Power BI connected directly to them, which is one of the things a lot of people don't talk about. All everyone sees is just, hey, it's instant access to all of your data. They don't take into account the fact that Power BI, every time someone's refreshing, is going to be pulling data from these systems, and it's going to slow the systems down and not allow them to just be transactional systems like they're supposed to be. And that's one thing that seems to be overlooked a lot until they're suffering, until people are calling you going, hey, why is the system that we just paid a ton of money for, why is it so slow? And also, why is my report not refreshing quickly? It's both of the things are sort of interacting and causing trouble. And down here, I sort of diagrammed a solution that I would have, which would be having the ERP be an ERP, or the CRM be a CRM, using SQL Server or any other data warehouse, really, any other database platform, to pull data on a nightly basis or hourly basis for certain items if you absolutely need that, storing that data in a data warehouse, and then using that data warehouse for Power BI or Tableau or really any other reporting solution you may have. And the ETL itself, luckily, can be done with SQL Server Integration Services. Can be done with things like IBM DataStage, DBT, Airflow, Talend. There's so many tools out there. I don't specialize in anything other than SQL Server Integration Services and Azure Data Factory, and I do some Oracle as well. Oracle data warehousing solution, whatever it's called these days. But the concept is what was important, is separating the data warehouse and all of its data from the ERP, just copying it over, and then using that to power your Power BI reports or to power your enterprise reports. This means that they can just keep refreshing all the live long day. The reality is they're not going to get any new data unless you do another pull to the data warehouse, but they can run all the reports they want. You can also link it with other data systems that you may have, other data sources you may have. If you work with shipping vendors, if you work with accounting vendors, if you work with marketing vendors, you can have all that data come into your data warehouse. You can link it to your ERP data, to your CRM data within your actual data warehouse and not have to travel back and forth between your ERP and CRM. There's also the charge. They charge you to get data out of their system. Whether you sort of see it at first sight or not, they are charging you. They'll charge you for additional channels to get that data through, like lanes or tunnels. They'll charge you for API requests if you're making API requests to do it. So there are these hidden charges and these hidden things that you don't really take into account when you first sign up, but are super important. Okay, so not only did I talk about that strategy, but I also talked about what my ideal ETL solution would be for getting data out of things like Salesforce, Oracle itself, Oracle's NetSuite, HubSpot, Dynamics, and any other APIs. So we have a source data platform here on the left, and then via either, it can be either link server or any other. It can be via APIs. It can be via, let's start sort of mapping this out a little bit, right? Because it can be via Python. I want to say that's not going to be a good one. That's shapes in use, but I want more. I want more shapes. Where do I get more shapes? I think I need like a Python logo. Windows. Okay, so that's there. Does Python just not work? Yeah, it's just this. That's super weird that Lucidchart doesn't have like a Python logo at least. I thought you could at least do like images or themes, containers, images. Okay, here. Python as an icon, maybe? There we go. So you can do via link server in SQL Server. You can do it via Python. You can do it via PowerShell. Let's see if it lets us, really? Yeah, via PowerShell. That's a huge PowerShell. Let's do a little of that. Really, any scripting language, right, would be good for this too. You can use SSIS at this point, which I already have right here. But basically, oh, you know what? I guess I can add up right here instead. We can use PowerShell. We can use Python to pull the data and to push it into our data warehouse. There's really lots and lots of options. Mine, again, if I had to build a dream setup, it would probably be using a SQL Server data warehouse, which we can see right here, and using a mix of Python and SSIS with Kingswaysoft or CData packages. I'd probably lean towards Kingswaysoft because they provide their tools for free for development. I haven't done too much research into CData, but I would also use PowerShell because again, it's free and it's very similar to Python in that it's a scripting language. So I would pull the data from the source system, house it in a staging area in my data warehouse, push it to a historical area of my data warehouse, and then all of that would take place either in a stored procedure or via SSIS, and then be served up to Power BI via views or stored procedures. So Power BI accesses only the data inside my data warehouse. It does not touch my CRMs at all. It actually has no idea that my CRMs even exist. And that keeps sort of a separation there, which allows my CRMs and my ERPs to just act as those systems instead of having to worry about Power BI and blaming Power BI for slowness or anything like that. It keeps things separate and it keeps things controlled in a controlled environment, which would be this data warehouse. So the first thing I want to do is sort of build a spec sheet for what this would look like. What would something like this look like? And what I'm going to do is see if I can open up Word. Yeah, there we go. New Copilot's in Word now? Super. Can I just close this? Fantastic. Okay. Wow. Okay, so it's like telling me I need to use Copilot inside Word. Super. I'll get right on that. Okay. So the first thing I want to sort of outline is hardware, right? I want to really get a feel for what sort of hardware I want to use. So the hardware would be either a virtual machine using on-prem hosts, on-prem or cloud provider hosts. And if I say on-prem, really? Can I not make like bullet points here? Let's see. There we go. Okay, so on-prem would be on-premise data center with bare metal, with what's called bare metal servers. That's kind of what I have here at home, is I have sort of an on-premise data center because I have a couple little machines that are my SQL servers, and I sort of remote into them, and all the actions happen with those machines. So technically speaking, mine is an on-prem data center with bare metal. Now, there's also cloud providers or just data center providers. These are your computer in someone else's data center, right? They host the hardware. You simply pay them for that service, and they make it available through a network. Now, they can set up a network for you as part of your data center where it's your private network. They can set up all these cool things. There'll be administrators if you want them to be administrators. Just sort of like a platform as a service kind of thing, or data center as a service, if you will. Okay, so these are two options. Then you can have virtual machines in the cloud, VM in cloud, like Azure, AWS, and Google Cloud. I think Oracle, OCI, I'm not sure if it's OCI, where basically you can pay a company directly, like Azure, Amazon, Google, or Oracle, to host a server / infrastructure. So you can have an entire infrastructure in here. So that's an option for sure. Then we have servers or server licensing. And technically you could say, well, the server is the license, or sorry, the server is the hardware. I mean, yes. So maybe we can call this like server software. For managed solutions, they may include the server software. For example, Windows Server, Linux, etc. You can run, for example, SQL Server and Oracle. You can run them both on Linux. That's absolutely fine. For me, because of the fact that I am specifically trained on Windows, I'm not trained on Linux. I'm not trained on Oracle's Sun Microsystems Solaris operating system. I'm trained on Windows Server. So again, we're talking about my dream build. This would be, my preference would be Windows Server, standard or enterprise, depending on your need, depending on how much usage you need to get out. And the enterprise solution really depends a lot on their hardware as well. So like if you have 128 cores and you have multiple terabytes of RAM, for example, you're going to need an enterprise solution or an enterprise software license to unlock all that, to get actually use all that. If you don't, if you have a basic machine, let's say something like 128 gigs of RAM, 4 cores, and that's really all you need in a, let's say, a SQL server, that's okay. If you need a couple VMs to serve as application servers, or even remote servers like jump boxes, then you're okay with a standard solution. So for me, it would be Windows Server, either standard or enterprise, and software assurance. Now, before we go shopping, because we're going to go shopping a little bit, before we go shopping, I want database software engine. So database engine, then we have ETL, software / solutions, and we also have admin consoles and software. I think those will just about cover it. There's also the networking aspect. I'm not going to jump too much into it because the solution I have sort of relies on you having an existing setup of some sort. Or if you don't have any of that set up, then it would just be, sort of either in a data center that you pay someone else for, in a closet, if you have a data closet kind of thing. And I don't specialize in networking. I only specialize in networking when it comes to SQL Server itself, like what sort of things I need to yell at the network administrators to make SQL Server work, that sort of thing. But if you go with a solution like Azure or AWS, your networking stuff is sort of not really included, but it's very easy to manage because it's a virtual network. So that is something to take into consideration. Maybe network considerations would be a proper one to use. Okay, so let's talk about the database engine. So here, again, dream setup, I would go ahead and have SQL Server 2022 or 2025. Nothing else. Nothing older now. Why? Well, let's check something really quick. SQL Server updates.com. And there's a recent post from Bren Ozar about this, which was really interesting as well. Basically, SQL Server 2022 is the only database platform that is currently like serviceable, not, I wouldn't say serviceable, but in mainstream support right now. Even 2019, support ends 2030 for that. But really where you want to be right now is SQL Server 2022 or even 2025 if you have the preview. You do not want to be anywhere in 2017 land. That's going to end support in 2027. SQL Server 2016 ends in 2026. So you really, even 2016, you're like 4 versions behind right now. So that's something that's very interesting as well. You want to be somewhere around 2022. So we'll say 2022 or 2025 when it comes out, or when it goes to general release. Maybe it already is. Let's see. Microsoft SQL Server. Let's see. Are they still advertising 2022? Yeah. They're still advertising 2022, but 2025 is like super looming around the corner right now. It's probably, I think it's in preview, if I'm not mistaken. So definitely want to do SQL Server 2022 at the very least. You can do it in Windows, Linux, and Docker containers, as you can see here. All right, so you want SQL Servers 2022 or 2025. You want for smaller, for simpler solutions, standard edition. For high, for high transaction, high usage, and even high HADR, so high availability and disaster recovery, maybe enterprise. But I don't even want to say this because like the reality is the what I would get enterprise for would be to sort of get an unlocked potential for my hardware or for Power BI report server. And we'll talk about Power BI report server in a second, but this is enterprise is really about unlocking high high value, no, um, high potential in hardware. So I'll say example, RAM limits, CPU limits, etc. And you may ask, well, can't you really do that with standard? And at what point do we need enterprise? And I would say it just really depends on your situation. If you're a shop that really wants it's like extremely fast processing, almost all of your work done in RAM instead of disk, then enterprise may be for you because you can just keep slamming in RAM and be good. If you have unlimited dollars and money for CPUs, absolutely, go with enterprise because standard isn't going to be able to get the most out of it. But standard is about being able to run. It's about being able to just run SQL Server with a high output, with high output transactions as a data warehouse, as a transactional database. You can absolutely run it just fine. I worked in many organizations that just had standard, and I've worked in a couple that have enterprise as well, and it's worked absolutely fine. We just don't push it to its limit a ton. And when we do, we just add some more RAM. And I'm talking about shops that house billions of records, not just millions. But really, enterprise for me is about, I'm going to say enterprise is also about the included features. Primarily for me, it's going to be about Power BI report server and about a free failover cluster instance. Power BI report server allows you to have an on-premise solution for all of your Power BI reports and paginated reports in one place without having to be online. You can host them right on your servers, and people can log into them right on your servers. Very similar to SSRS. It's extremely similar to SSRS. In fact, it's pretty much SSRS with like black and yellow paint. So, hopefully that'll be what we need, is just a Power BI report server, just free failover cluster instances, and that should be able to hold a lot of people as far as like wanting enterprise, because enterprise is double the cost of standard. It is double the cost. So it's not like it's some cheap add-on to SQL Server Standard Edition. It is $7,000 per US core. $7,000 per US core. And with a minimum, I think, of 2 cores. So that's $14,000 minimum just for 2 CPU cores. And just for the licensing, right? This does not include the hardware. It doesn't include any of that. It's just for the licensing. So, and then enterprise has obviously some like additional features, and it requires sort of additional attention to get the most out of those features. So there is the resource overhead too. And I think Yeah, I'm gonna stay on maybe 30 minutes, but I think I have a, a family thing I have to uh, worry about right now. So I'm going to maybe stay on another 15 minutes and then I have to jet, I think. But I'll continue this at a later time, or actually, technically tonight. Um, let's see. So we're gonna say standard is about being running your core database platform, database and reporting platform, and is okay to use if you're not trying to extract extremely, I'll say extremely high performance from your SQL Server. Example, very high RAM and CPU. And that very high isn't even doing it justice, because it's just a ton. Like, you'd have to extract a lot of RAM to I think SQL Server Standard has its RAM limits. Let's see, SQL Server Standard RAM limit 128 gigs. No, Standard Edition does support up to 128 gigs. Okay, so yeah, and that's, I think there was a lot of discussion recently. Brent Ozar, I think, had an entire video about it. So did Eric Darling, if I want to say, or at least they talked about it extensively. It's basically the 128 gigs is about the buffer pool, and there's still additional unlocked potential there. But if you want to extract more than 128 gigs of memory out of SQL Server, obviously you want to go with something like Enterprise, right? So we do want to put that here in our document. And we're going to go ahead and put it. Enterprise Standard, okay, limit 128 gigs of RAM. And is there a CPU limit? That's 2014 though. 2016 and newer. Oh, hey, here's a Brent Ozar article. 2020. How many cores? How many cores? 8 sockets with 1 core per socket. So I'm thinking 8 cores. Running Enterprise. Okay, cause running Standard Edition on big servers. I think that's what we're just talking about right now. 2016 and newer cap out at 28 cores. There we go. And he talks about affinity masking as well to configure alternate cores as active so you can balance the workloads more. That's very interesting as well. At this point, maybe you want to go into things like availability groups, which I don't know if availability groups is available on Standard. I think it is. But that's another consideration, right? Another limit is what did it say? 24 cores? Standard, which maxes out at 16 cores. 16. Oh no, that's 24. That's 2014. I think I saw somewhere. Yeah, 2016 cap out at 24 cores. CPU. Okay. So if you want to use things like features to consider for high availability and disaster recovery, HADR, things like availability groups. And I could put here available on Standard. Failover cluster instance. And then just standard backups. Other features include online index rebuilds for maintenance. This is stuff that people just don't think about until it's a problem and they really need to do it, and then they're sort of stuck holding the bag, and that's probably a bit frustrating for not just them, but also um, the folks involved. Also, the folks involved, and I think there's a sign here. Okay. It almost looked like my PC was crashing, but I think I do have to go sometime soon. Yeah. Online index rebuilds, ETL and software solutions. Let's talk about that because I could go on and on about SQL Server licensing for hours, but I think I have enough to sort of keep going before we go shopping. So ETL and software solutions, again, my dream build would probably be something like SSIS, SQL Server Integration Services. And you may say, oh, well, SSIS is super old. Why would you use that these days? Because I haven't found a problem that SSIS couldn't solve. Until I find something where it's like, oh man, SSIS can't do this. Why would I change? It's 100% free with standard edition. It's free with standard edition. One of the most powerful ETL solutions is free with standard edition. Why would I not use it? It's there. I've paid for it already as part of the licensing. Why not? And then we have, of course, reporting solutions as well that I have to put here, like SSRS, PBI-RS, and PBI. You can also say Tableau. Crystal reports. I'll just put that on there as a joke. No, I won't. No way. PowerShell. And then others like Talent, Airflow, etc. Okay, SSIS add-ons such as Kingsway Soft and CData. I think it's like this or something like that. I'm really not sure. Python and PowerShell are both free. In fact, I can run PowerShell and Python as part of SSIS as well. So I can use SSIS as an orchestrator. I'm going to put here, can do the work, but also orchestrate. What else did I want to put here? PowerShell, Python. I think that's it. I probably have it in the diagram. It's okay. Then the cost. Free with standard plus, and KWS additional 400, I think it's like 350, 400. And what else? Development is free. That is a huge deal, right? The development is free for SSIS, for SQL Server, all that good stuff. It is free. I'm going to put that here. Development environment equals free. Every feature is available for free while you get it up and running, while you're developing, and then you only pay once you need to go to production. All right, so we have the features, we have the database engine section, we have the ETL and software solutions section. Let's go shopping. Let's do a little bit of shopping at CDW. So at CDW, I went ahead and searched CDW's areas, and I found Windows Server, right? So you want to have a Windows Server for your box. Maybe if you want backups, which you probably do, you want to have double everything. And that's where things start to get a little bit expensive, right? For backups, you would have double everything. So let's say you buy this 16 core license for Windows Server. Now you're buying 2 of those. So if you spent $1,000 on your Windows Server, which by the way is a lot, maybe I could get by doing like, no, this is license and software assurance. Why is this $300? but this is $1,300. CDW, what's going on? If I could just compare this and compare that and compare, what is the difference between these two items other than the price and the CDW part number and the MPSA? Like, this is Windows. It's Windows Server level B and level D. I don't know what any of those things mean, which is why I never liked the hardware area of things. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what the difference is between the two products. Let's go with like the most expensive, not the most expensive, but like let's go halfway and just say it's $800 per box. But that's 16 cores. And then we have the CALs. I don't understand enough about CALs to really go down that route. I'd rather just do standard licenses. So let's pretend. I'm thinking the servers themselves, Windows Server 2022, is just gonna be about $700 per box. So let's say about $750 per box, and then you want minimum of 2 boxes for backups. So that's what Windows Server is. We will have Windows Server 2022, $750 per box, and let's see what else. I think that includes software assurance, so we should be okay. Let's go to SQL Server. SQL Server 2022, and we'll say standard. I mean, I'm pretty confident that it's $2,000 per core. That's everyone is pretty much aware of that. $2,000 per core and 2 cores right here. $2,952. That's $4,000. It's basically this. Right? I'm not even gonna go anywhere else for it when I have it. The database software. I'll say database software. DB software is SQL Server Standard. Now, pasting is getting smarter. That's fantastic, Microsoft. Thank you. This is 2,000 per core equals 4,000. And then you get into the times 2. Because if you want a backup, you need the times 2, right? You need a hot one and a standby. So this is where things are like, okay, well, it's $4,000, but then if I want a backup copy or just a backup server, then technically you're running into that. So just keep that in mind. Suddenly, Enterprise with its $7,000 per core doesn't sound horrible when you realize you're spending $8,000 on SQL Server just to have, you know, one active and then one possible backup as well. So, and technically speaking, you could probably get away with like sharing the license to your backup server. Did I just say that out loud? I meant you could never get away with that. Absolutely never. Nobody should do that ever, right? Microsoft, absolutely not. Okay, so we'll go ahead and say SQL Server Standard is $2,000 per core, and then we'll say SQL Server 2022, and you need software assurance too. That's really important. So is that not here? I think it's only with Enterprise, I guess. Enterprise. Nope, it's there. It should be there. Okay, so Enterprise here, I guess they're giving you a discount. That's $13,000. 2 cores. is $13,000, but again, times 2 because you need a backup, right? So just keep that in mind. SQL Server Enterprise. And this is 7,000 or 6,000 something per core. Equals, let's say 13,000 times 2. So you're already looking at $26,000 for, again, 2. But with SQL Server Enterprise, you do get free FCI. So technically speaking, you could use your failover cluster instance as your backup, but I don't know. That's a tough one there. All right, so we have that. We need software assurance as well. And I will say SQL Server, maybe SQL Server software assurance. I think I saw somewhere around here software assurance. Ugh. Standard is the costs just add up, don't they? The costs just add up. Okay, software assurance for standard. Software assurance is this, and that looks like it's $4,000. I think this is actually SQL Server though. Oh, this is core edition with software assurance. Okay, no, I want to say software assurance is much cheaper than this. This, maybe this right here. This might be it. This might be it for standard. But I don't know. We'll I think I'm just gonna leave it sort of blank. It's best to talk to your CDW rep or whoever you have licenses for software assurance. Additional, but software assurance does allow you to get free upgrades, and it's really good for support as well. So, and also for SQL Server Enterprise, you need software assurance to be able to benefit from the free failover cluster instance and the free Power BI report server. So just keep that in mind as well. All right, ETL and software solutions, we'll do SSIS. That's included in the price. I'll just say included with, the cost. It's free with Standard Plus. Let's go to Kingsway Soft's website. SSIS Productivity Pack, I think is what it's called. Here. And we'll talk purchase. $14.95 for 1 year. Okay, $14.95 for 1 year. But if you do like a 2 year, then it's $29.90. So let's do 1 year. How much is a 3 month? $5.99. Let's do a standard 1 year. Nope, I thought it was an additional $400. It's an additional $1,400 per year. And then let's go ahead and just grab this. Now, why would you need Kingsway Soft? It's just an enhancement for SSIS. It makes SSIS way more powerful, like way more powerful. It has so many different connectors, and I really want to go ahead and just like use it here for my streams, but it's just extremely powerful. It makes SQL Server integration services just way better and a lot more usable. It connects to SharePoint, it connects to OneDrive, Amazon, Redshift, SQL servers like all over the place. Azure Data Factory, or sorry, Azure itself, not Azure Data Factory. It's just a lot of the people who criticize SSIS have probably never used it with a tool like Kingsway Soft. If they had, it'd be a completely different conversation that we'd be having. But some would argue that all the features that SSIS has with Kingsway Soft, you could just do them yourself in Python, and that's absolutely cool. You need a data engineer for that. If you don't have one, and you have someone who is good enough at SSIS, they could probably make it happen. Here, Azure Data Factory. That's the other thing I was forgetting. And that comes with its own costs, right? So now that we're in Azure land, or now that we're talking about Azure, I'm going to go to my Azure portal, and I'm just going to spec out some SQL servers, maybe some SQL databases. And these are actually SQL databases. They're not servers. They are just databases, which means they run just in the cloud, in Azure's instances, in your resource group. You cannot have quote unquote hardware for these. They just run in a resource group in Azure. If you want to be able to control a SQL server on your own, you need an Azure virtual machine. And you can use, if you go to compute infrastructure and virtual machines, you can create one right here. You can choose something like a template version. And when I start to create it, you'll see the costs starting to sort of go. So let's say I need it to be available. This is standard right here. Okay, the image I want, including the server, is a 2022 Windows Server 2022 data center. So here we have our data center, and we'll see the cost. This is a monthly cost now, $294 a month. And you think, oh, you know what? That's actually not bad at all. But then you start getting into, oh, well, I need I need 4 CPUs. In reality is I need 2 CPUs because that's what I could license SQL Server with. Because you do need to bring your own SQL Server license for this. All you get here is a virtual machine. You don't get SQL Server. You still have to pay for that. So you can sort of go this route of getting your own getting your own hardware using Azure or AWS or something like that. Just know you'd be paying $178 a month at the very least. So let's do something like a screenshot here. Can I do a screenshot? Yeah. Why don't I just do a screenshot of more than this? Maybe like that. So if we do, these are reporting solutions. Let's do Azure. Let's just do a section down here. Azure virtual machines. 2-core CPU. Windows 2022 data center. License. It would be roughly $178 a month starting. That's without any, in my opinion, that's probably without any compute. 85 a month equals how much a year? Because, you know, math. 2,400 or so a year. 178, 85 times 12. Yeah, 2146. So let's say 2,200 a year. Base. This is just base. This is a base server. That's all it is. You still need additional licensing, right? Still need additional licensing. Okay, so that's really important as well. So I'm gonna go away from this and just go back to SQL databases, which, by the way, I should note, SQL databases are 100% free for you, the developer, and even small businesses using. There's no coupon code or anything like that from like me. This is not me advertising for them. It's just I really want people to be able to leverage free resources, and Azure SQL DB as of like 2 months ago is now completely free in limited capacity. I have a YouTube video up there that shows you exactly how to do it, but the documentation, which I also linked up there, is pretty easy to follow, so you can do it yourself too. Then you need, let's see, we did our server. We have our databases. Then we need ETL platforms, which we sort of have outlined out right here. Admin consoles and software, so you have to get additional VMs or additional like laptops, for example, if you want the laptops to be able to connect, and you need pretty powerful laptops for stuff. So you can get, you know, Azure VMs for admins and developers, or you can get laptops that are 16, no, I would say 32 gigabyte plus RAM, and i7 plus CPU. There's that as well, right? Because that is part of the consideration. The network considerations, again, it's really dependent on what your specific solution is. Poo Poo Chew, hello. Hope you're doing well. Poo Poo Chew, is that a new offering from Azure? It seems like everyone has a free tier these days. I haven't used Azure before. Yeah, absolutely. It is a new offering about 2 months ago. And again, you know, I have the documentation plus a YouTube video on how I configured it. But yeah, it's 100% free from them. It's in limited capacity, so they do run out, but you actually get 10 free databases. That's pretty cool. There's also, if you haven't, if you just want to use Oracle, for example, you can use LiveSQL, which is right there in the chat as well. I have a video on how to use LiveSQL on my YouTube channel too, if you want to check that one out. But it is, it's very free. It's very free. Yeah, absolutely. Hope you're doing well, Poo Poo Chew, and hope you're having a good Saturday so far, if it's not already Sunday for you. Network considerations, we're good there. I mean, I'll probably draft something up here that's, you know, firewall type stuff, but it's not really anything, for me, it's not worth writing home about, because this implies you will have a network team, implies you have networking set up or are using Azure Virtual Networks, which is what I have in my Azure environment. So that is something to think about there as well. And then reporting solutions, SSRS, free with Enterprise Plus. If I could spell enterprise, that'd be good. Power BI report server is free with Enterprise. Oh no, this is free with Standard Plus. Standard Plus. Power BI report server is free with Enterprise with SA for software assurance, and it's also $25,000 a year without Enterprise. So quite expensive. Okay, Power BI, that is probably now, if you could just get into Power BI, let's be safe and say it's $14 per month per user. Because I used to be 10, but I think it went up for new subscriptions. Only like, you know, folks who already had it are grandfathered in. $20 per month per user for premium. Authors and consumers need licenses, and you can also go the Fabric route, licensing route, and also may be included with some O365 licenses, maybe E5 Plus or something like that. I have to check on the E5 including Power BI, but I'm not really sure. And then Tableau, I don't know enough about it. I just don't. So I'm just gonna leave it alone. Sometimes low cost if you have Salesforce. I'll say reduced cost because it's really not low. Reduced cost if you have Salesforce, just because it's they're owned by Salesforce, so that could be something. And let's see. We have the features. I think the rest of this is just sort of building it out. But I think that's where I would go these days. If I had to build something from the ground up and just get it implemented in, let's say, a month, I would basically take either in an Azure environment or just buy the computers or buy the bare metal or buy a service provider. You can also buy hardware on someone else's data storage closet, right? But I would have 2 Windows servers. I would have SQL Server standard for both of those, unless there's a dire need for Power BI report server or something like that where they absolutely need it, and so we need enterprise, or they want to use more than 128 gigabytes of RAM, or more than what was it, 24 cores, I think, something like that, for standard. Yeah, 24 core CPU. We'll say limit here and limit here. If you want to get way more than that out, then of course go with enterprise. If you want like a failover cluster instances, you're gonna get those anyway, then maybe enterprise start to make sense, but it's not, in my opinion, it's not really necessary. Then high availability and disaster recovery, depending on what you need. Things like availability groups, things like failover cluster instances. You can also just use standard, standard publish / subscribe replication. That's not really out of the question, right? You can absolutely still use standard replication, which is just a publisher and a subscriber from one SQL server to another to get data across. That's absolutely fine. Then we have maintenance for things like online index rebuilds are only available with enterprise. So if you can't afford, quote unquote, a maintenance window, that's basically has your application going down for a data warehouse. Let's be serious. You can afford that because hopefully, unfortunately, it's going to come at the expense of late nights for your DBAs maybe, but you can afford that for sure. So you don't absolutely need things like online index rebuilds. Excuse me one second. All right, so yeah, we have the maintenance as well. I just talked about online index rebuilds. Software environment, or the development environment for all of these is free. It's 100% free. You have to worry about the of course the boxes, but quick story, and this is actually one of my YouTube shorts as well. I did an entire enterprise solution proof of concept with Power BI with SQL Server Enterprise Edition. Was really developer on a Microsoft Surface, not even a Surface laptop, not even a Surface Book, just like the tablet Surface. It was like a Surface Pro 5, and I ran SQL Server on it. I ran the Power BI Data Gateway on it, and I built all my Power BI reports on it. And the way I made it stick was I got it to work. I sent links to our leadership team or the executive team, having the data available to them in this fancy new reporting platform. And then I turned my laptop off. I had it on for like a couple days, making sure everything was okay, making sure I trained them on how to use it. But then I turned my laptop off, and I got calls. Hey, why is it not working? What's going on? And I was like, oh, we got them. And it wasn't really a ploy to get them, on side and all that stuff, but it was really like, this works. This is something that they need to do their jobs, right? They do their jobs better with this. That is the biggest selling point you could do, is use this free version, because everything is free. Maybe Power BI, you still have to pay the $10 a month, but hey, whatever. SQL Server Enterprise is free in development mode. It's called SQL Server Developer Edition. You should not be using SQL Server Express. Listen. I know you're using SQL Server Express and you've been recommending SQL Server Express to people. Stop doing that. Stop. SQL Server Express is good for production when you don't need certain features, but it is a production license. If you are using SQL Server Express for development, stop. And stop recommending it. I see you recommending it. It's not great. Please don't do that. So yeah, SQL Server Developer Edition, it's 100% free. You can just download it for development and proof of concept purposes, and then you get to keep it for development and proof of concept services or purposes. And that's fantastic too, right? Now you have the SQL Server Developer Edition, which has all the features of Enterprise that you can just do your tests on and new development. Because you don't develop in like production, right? You don't do that. So you need this development environment, and you have that for free. Implement SSIS in that development environment. It's 100% free. Implement Power BI, or at least the Power BI Gateway is always going to be free, even in production. And start developing your reports in that development environment, even if the development environment is a laptop. Listen, I'm not going to judge you if it's a laptop like it was for me. I have a SQL Server on my laptop. I have 3 workstations here that have SQL Server on them, all developer edition. I don't pay a cent, and I get to provide what is hopefully quality content for you all. So highly recommend that as well. And when you're ready to go to either standard or enterprise, all you have to do is back up the databases and restore them on your production SQL Server. So it's pretty easy to just flip the switch and start using it as production and switch over your Power BI reports and all that stuff to your production one. In fact, they can remain in development until you're ready. And when you're ready to go, you flip the switch on everything and you keep using development for development purposes. So I think I'm done. Again, that was a walkthrough of how I would set up a SQL Server data warehouse environment today. If I needed to start tomorrow, this would be my plan for starting something up as soon as possible. I would say, no cost issues. If we had no cost issues, if we had no issues waiting for licensing, if I needed to get from a point where I have nothing, I just have my CRM with nothing else after it, right? If I go back here, if I needed to get to the point where all I have is this on the left, and I don't have any of what's on the right, and I needed to build a development proof of concept. Back in 2017, when I was new to when I was new to architecting solutions, I was a DBA for years before that and an analyst before that. It took, I want to say, about a week and a half, 2 weeks. Now, to get some basic data for some basic reporting, again, using development, cost, let's forget about cost for a second. If I had access to a laptop, access to download administrative access to a laptop, it would take roughly a couple days to get something spooled up to where they were looking at 1 or 2 reports. That's really how easy it is these days. And that's me doing it sort of quote unquote the hard way with SSIS. If you get other tools like Airflow, Talend, and all that stuff, I think they make it even easier. So that is something to keep in mind, is there is development time for this, right? And that is going to cost either money or resources or something like that, but it is one of the costs that you should consider. And in fact, I'm going to put it right here as well. Network considerations, and then resource, human resources, workers, but SMEs, etc. Right? You need a DBA, you need data architect, data analyst, ETL admin slash dev developer, and a BI analyst slash developer. I think with this, you're okay. And then obviously, you know, the hardware slash networking folks, I'm not even going to do that. Then you might need a cloud admin as well, if applicable, something like that. So, in certain cases, if you're like a consulting firm or something, you might be all these. If you're a small team, it might be two of you sharing all of these roles, the DBA through BI analyst role. So that is something to consider as well, is that you need people with this expertise. Technically speaking, some of them can be the same people. So, all right, let me go and check PollGap to see if there are any questions there. If there are not, I will go ahead and depart because I have to go talk to my kid. It's her birthday today, so happy birthday, Demi, if you ever get to watch this. Hope, well, she's not having the greatest evening, but I think she had a good day. So I think I am ready to head out. I do not see any new questions. So if you watch this in the future, first of all, hello from the past, and also head over to PollGab. I'm going to put it in the chat, even though it's pinned to the chat. Head over to PollGab, ask me a question there, and I will tackle it during my next stream. I'll even show it across the top there, so it can be prominent on the screen as well. So get any questions in that you have, or any ideas for future data sets, for future data streams. I am streaming in Spanish tomorrow, at least up to now I am. Depends on how things are going with my little one. Streaming in Spanish tomorrow. I have a couple topics that I want to cover. I'm not sure which one I will be covering. So I think this is it for English. Until next week, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Hope you all have a wonderful Saturday evening, and I'll see you next time.